Welcome to the Learning with Lowl Podcast. Tune in every Tuesday to hear world-class scientists, startup founders, CEOs, and authors, people who you wouldn't normally hear about but are making huge waves all the same. You'll understand them and their work by hearing their passion, laughter, advice, and hearing them, the experts, break down what they're working on so that you can learn, push the boundaries of your knowledge and understanding. 3 quick ways to show your support and get unique, exclusive, and fun content is by checking out the learningwithlowl.com website, our Patreon page, even if it's just $1, it keeps us advertisement free, and subscribing. Today we are joined with Nichola. She is the CEO and co-founder of Nuchido, which is a very funly named startup working on anti-aging out in the UK. In this episode we get into anti-aging, what she's developed, why is it special than anything else out there, the rigorous testing she's gone through, and a really good sense of who she is as a person. So if you want to know and hear what it's like to be a startup founder and working on longevity, I think this is a good episode for you. Remember to check out the YouTube if you want to see the video of this, and check the show notes about the video and website to be able to click around with the hyperlink show notes. Just a quick editor's note that this is the last time I used Skype and didn't use a microphone, so just use the one straight from my Mac, and that's why the sound quality is not the best. But from here on, you have a microphone, and I use Zoom, which has a much better sound quality. So thank you for being patient with me. So you made like this like NAD plus cocktail. I was curious what is in there, because I looked online and there's like pills and stuff. So, but I was just kind of curious, like what is in a cocktail, and then like the second part of that is like, do you like inject it in them or do they eat it? I don't know. That's not the technical way of doing it, but yeah.
Okay, so first of all, I'm going to be like really disappointed and tell you that I can't tell you what's in the cocktail, because it's, it's like patent protected kind of like secret recipe thing we're working on. But it's basically designed to be an oral supplement. So the idea behind it is, at the moment, the only sort of oral supplement you can take to try and boost your NAD is something called an NAD precursor. So essentially, it's just part of the structure, molecular structure of something you can take that would actually get converted in the cells in the body and actually make NAD. You can't actually take NAD like orally, like in a pill or something, because it's like a really big molecular structure, so it just wouldn't get through the gut, it wouldn't go to where it needs to be in the body. So the only way you can kind of try to increase your NAD if you want to take a pill or some sort of intervention is to take this precursor. But the problem with the precursors is I kind of sort of describe the concept as a cell being a factory. So if you've got the cell, which is, your factory, which is making NAD, you can imagine the precursor as being like the raw ingredients that are coming into the factory. And if you just continue to get more trucks and trucks delivering this precursor, but you don't try to make the actual staff in the factory more efficient, or you don't try to put more machines in the factory, then this precursor is just going to pile up and pile up and pile up, and it's not actually going to get converted into NAD. So really, taking a precursor as a supplement to try and boost your NAD isn't the kind of best way you could do it. So what we wanted to do was to design something where it not only increase the delivery of raw material to the factory, but also increase the productivity of the factory or the cell. So, how can you turn up the enzymes that would make NAD, and look at all the pathways that are involved, look at things that actually, degrade the NAD, degrade the precursor, things like that. So the cocktail is essentially designed to do that.
So even if you could get through the stomach with the large molecule of NAD plus, it seems like what you've made would be better, because then you're looking at like the whole, like the ecology of the situation. If I'm like reading that right, like, so even if you could get like the direct stuff through, like you're looking at it from not even just a supply standpoint, but like maximizing the workers' health benefits and whatnot, so that they're more productive. So even if you could get it through, because I was just thinking of ways to get it through the stomach, it would be even better to use your method. Right?
Yeah, I mean, there's always a problem where if you're putting a precursor into a biological system, that actually what happens is the system readjusts. So if you're doing, putting something in there and then the cell's going, oh, hang on a minute, we've got alarm bells going off saying we've got loads of this precursor building up, so we'll shut everything else down to be able to deal with it. So you kind of get these knock-on effects because, nothing's linear in a cell. It's loads of complicated pathways and networks that are all talking to each other. So you can't just do one thing because there's always consequences or there's always other redundant effects that are going to, happen.
Mm-hmm. Is there... When you were doing the study, did you notice if there was any physical or mental differences in having it boosted and rejuvenated, or are you just looking at the levels of it?
Yeah, so we in those in the initial trials that I think you've seen in the presentation I did at Undoing Aging, they were proof of concept studies. They were in humans, obviously, and at that stage, there's no placebo controls. So you've kind of got to take everything with a pinch of salt, because obviously these people, the volunteers know they're taking something, and they roughly know what it's, what the aim is of it. It's kind of, looking at healthy aging. So they all reported that they felt more energetic, which wouldn't be the least surprising thing. So, people that were saying, normally they're really bad at sleeping, and whilst it didn't improve the sleeping, they didn't feel rubbish like they normally do from the lack of sleep, kind of things like that. But again, it's all, very, you can't read much from it, but it is interesting that these people haven't spoke to each other yet, have all come to kind of the same comments to us.
It reminds me of this guy, I think it was a TED Talk. I think maybe I watched many of those. But this guy, they were trying to figure out side effects of taking, because there's people do studies, that's not the science way of saying this, but people conduct studies to see what an effect of one drug will have on a person, but they usually don't see what one drug and another drug will have on a person. And so this person used Google, what people were searching in Google to figure out what the interactions were. Because people would be like, oh, I'm on this, and I'm having this interaction. Then they would their search history. I don't know if you saw that one. It's really interesting. So I'm always curious, it's a similar, everyone's kind of saying the same thing, and you can kind of line it up. But so for people who aren't familiar, if we can rejuvenate NAD, what are the long-term benefits? Are we going to be younger longer? What basically do you hope to come of developing what you're developing?
So NAD specifically is kind of one of these, hot topics, if you want to call it, at the minute within sort of longevity research and, health span promotion. And the reason being is that when you're born, you've got really high levels of NAD in your cell, and then basically throughout your lifetime, they decline exponentially. So if you were to look at it in a graph, it's just by the time you're elderly, whatever you wanted to find that as, you've pretty much got, a fraction left than what you had when you were born. And NAD is very important, not by itself, but because of the pathways that it activates downstream. So it results in, actual repair of your cells, and trying to keep them in good condition, repair of your DNA. It results in increased mitochondrial biogenesis in your cells, and obviously they are all involved in your energy. And mitochondrial decline is a main factor in aging. So the idea is that if you can boost your NAD back up to the levels that you had when you were younger, you can almost switch back on all these pathways. So the pathways that promote your body to kind of repair itself. Because what you've got to kind of remember is that this is one of the things I do find most fascinating about the whole concept of aging is the kind of the disposable soma theory of aging. So the fact that the reason we kind of age is because all the sole reason we're on this planet is to breed and essentially pass on our DNA. After we've gone past childbearing years, the soma, like the body, is, it's useless. And therefore, why would your body put energy into repairing it when it's no longer required, because it can't fulfill its function of passing on the DNA? It almost, switches off all these genes that keep your cells in good condition when you are young, but your genes haven't disappeared. They're still there, and they still can be switched back on. So it's looking at things that actually can switch your cells back into the state that they were when they were younger, where they do actually repair and regenerate rather than let them decline, basically. And if you can find therapies and things like that, then they'll help improve a person's health span, which is obviously the number of years a person can live in good health, where they're not frail, where they're not suffering disease, essentially live independent and fulfilled, happy life. So that's kind of the main aim of this type of research.
Hey, but why? Just like following up on this, like, why did you pick it? Like, you're a smart person. You could probably have done anything in the world. What? Because I always think it's interesting. We have basically infinite choices to do anything we want, especially with the internet. You can relearn and do anything you really choose. Like, why did anti-aging and NAD really speak to you as something that not only is interesting, but that you thought you could tackle?
Well, I suppose my interest is primarily biology. So not just aging, but just biology and the body. And, I've never really been one of those people where, I've been when I grow up, I want to be a doctor or I want to be an astronaut. And I've really been jealous of those types of people, but I've never knew what I wanted to do. But I just know that's the type of person I am. I have to be really interested in something, and then if I'm interested in it, that's it, I'll succeed in it, kind of thing. And I just was always fascinated when I was at school, my biology lessons, how cool the body is and how amazing it is and how all these things are happening all the time inside of you. And so that's how I kind of started in biology. But then I suppose the whole aging thing was very, very accidental, actually. So maybe it's about take a step back of how we form, why I formed the company. That might explain it. So I did my PhD in, drug discovery and how do drugs that you take, the tablets, go through your gut and get to where you want them to be in the body. So my training and my background is very much that end of science and biology. When I finished my PhD, I said, do you know what, I don't want to work in academia. I kind of want to go and work in industry. I found academia quite isolating, and I wanted to be in some sort of job where I could just go out and speak to people. And I thought maybe going and working for a company was a bit more where you could do that. So, I went around all the companies that I kind of knew that looked cool and interesting. And basically came across a drugs company that happened to be, basically right on my doorstep, and they were doing this really cool approach to drug discovery, which is a whole other story. But I basically contacted the CEO and I said, I think what you're doing is really cool. It really makes sense, and I'd love to be part of it. I know you don't have any jobs, but can I meet you? So met up with him, had a good chat about everything, and then I said, I know you don't have any jobs, it's fine. And he was like, do you know what? I like you. I'll kind of find you something. And that there are a few things I've had on my mind that I might need someone to do. So then he said, come into the office and I'll talk to you about it. So obviously I turned up at the office. Absolutely nobody had any idea about who I was or why I was there. And then I spoke to him and he said, I think aging is going to be something that's going to be really big and really important. And I was like, okay, it's not what I was expecting. And he said, I think I've been reading into it and there's something going on and I think it's really changing and I think the science is really moving forward. And at this point, I literally didn't have a clue about anything to do with aging. And he said, I just want to bring you into the company to specialise on this. So at this point, I literally spent a year learning everything about aging. I went to every conference, I listened to everyone talk about it, and kind of come up with what's going on in this field, and kind of like what are the main areas of focus. Where does it seem like there's lots of good research? Where's the research a bit thin? And from that point, I was just absolutely hooked. I was like, this is what I'm going to be now. To hell with what I do a PhD in. I'm going to be a biogerontologist. That is what I'm going to do. Because I just was like, this research just makes so much sense. Like the reasons behind it all. Like it's just fascinating. All the new stuff that's coming out. And for once, I kind of thought this is where I belong. So we went along doing all this research. Slight problem is, I was working for a drugs company, and as aging is not a disease, you can't treat it with a drug. Not yet, anyway. That's another big debate. But so in a company who's solely focused on looking at cancer drugs, actually trying to pursue this work in any meaningful way was difficult. And at that point was when I thought, okay, this is, I don't belong in this area, but it's put me on the right path to where I should be. And that is using all my knowledge and how to discover, develop drugs, but actually, and how, not just drugs, but how to identify molecules. And molecules that all kind of do what you specifically want them to do in the body. And then basically combine that with now all the sort of science I've learned about aging, and then at the sort of conjunction between them, look at how can we benefit from the science now? Because in the drugs industry, that's going to be 10 years, it's going to be 300 million to try and develop anything that's going to have any impact on people. But there's loads of these interventions and molecules that actually can have some real impact now. So let's take, this combination of expertise and start a new company where that is what we're doing. We're not going after pharmaceutically regulated molecules. We're looking at things that can be used now, that people can benefit now from, and things that are, for healthy aging, health span. So that's what I did. Went off and started Nuchido.
Quick question before I ask a follow-up. I don't know if this is not a quick question or not, but why Nuchido? Like, why? It just it makes me think of like nachos, and I don't know. I know that's probably not the intent. Like, I don't think anti-aging nachos is so I'm sure there's like a funny story, but I have a follow-up if that's a long story.
No, it's quite a short story. There's a reason behind it. So Nuchido, basically is very loosely translated in Japanese to path to long life. And the reason that we chose that was because the various areas of the world, or they're called blue zones, and they're basically regions where people live much longer than average. So they've got like a high proportion of centenarians, and they're quite well studied because it's like, why do these people live so long? In these specific areas, like what are they doing? And a famous one is Okinawa in Japan, and they have a saying which is Nushiga Sui, and it's like, it means food is the path to long life, and obviously we're not looking at food, so we kind of changed it a little bit, so it's like a play on words, but it's quite a nice little reason behind it.
That's interesting. It's funny that it means like the originalness of it. It has something to do with food, and I thought of nachos. So like I was like kind of seeing through it. Is there, when you were doing your research, I'm like divided between two. Like there's just so many cool things I can ask you. But so you did the 1 year of research, and then I think next year you're coming out. Like it's like you'll have like a finished product. Am I correct? The question is like how much time has elapsed. But if next year, because I think I was reading on your site that 2019 you're gonna have something. So I'm just curious, like how much development has this taken? Where like I think most people are used to like something taking like 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, so far the company's been running for 18 months, and we expect to have products, early next year. So it's going to be like 2 years in total. But that was our prime aim, to get something to market that people can actually use now. Because I come from a world where 10 years and £300 million is the norm and it's totally normal, and that's what I wanted to, move away from. So like, what things are there that actually are, can be get through safety and regulation and all sorts of stuff like that fast. And then also the other side is that the expertise that we've got in actual molecular discovery, we've got like a highly efficient way to do that. So where, most companies that are looking for molecules will sit and screen through thousands and thousands of molecules and only get a handful that work, we've got a much more efficient process of doing that, which massively cuts down the time it takes. And also actually we find a lot of cool things that work. So yeah.
Is that like your superpower? Is that the thing that you brought in? The like fast drug discovery mechanism structure, or like what? Because like I'm listening to you, and I think this is one of the questions we wanted to talk about. Like, what is your superpowers? So I'm just curious, like, how did? I guess I'm kind of guessing like maybe that's something that you brought to the table since because your background, but I could be wrong. So like,
well,
yeah,
it's actually that side of it is a lot more. So I co-founded Nuchido with someone else, and that's his superpower. He is the bioinformatician of it all, and that's very much his bag. But I think what's unique about the company is that we bring together skills that perhaps aren't usually brought together. So we've gone from an area of how do you do really efficient drug discovery, and now we've put that into aging research. And yeah, there are other companies that are looking for drugs in aging now. Only few, but a possible failure that some of them might have, not all of them, but some of them might have, is that they're just going about, drug discovery the conventional approach that all big pharma do, where, they go, oh, this gene's important in aging, let's knock it out. It's never ever going to work because aging is so complex and so, it's such a really difficult thing to crack that you can't do the sort of silver magic bullet approach. It has to be a lot more complex, and that's where we sort of have maybe the superpower. But yeah, so I don't know, not my superpower. I think my superpower is probably more bringing people together, bringing the right groups of people together. That maybe wouldn't normally.
Yeah, no, that's superpower. That's I think there's a guy in the early 1900s where he got paid like $1 million when everyone else was getting paid like $16 a year a week. So like he's making much more than the average Joe. And I don't know what the female version of Joe is, Joanna. I don't know, but are the ladies. And so his only job was just like work with people and figure out how to do them manage them effectively. So that is superpower. It's one that it's interesting to see in a scientist that had like many years of PhD work, because I noticed that sometimes like they get like really narrow, and like sometimes like the interpersonal connections is something that kind of goes down. So I'm curious, like how did you like keep that skill up, and then how did you develop it over those years where like you were like focusing down on other things, if that makes sense? Like how did you develop such a superpower?
I think, if I'm honest with you, it's just me. It's just my personality. It's just the way I am, the way I've always been. And I think maybe that's why I didn't stay, after I'd done my PhD in academia, because it didn't suit me as a person. And maybe I just didn't fit in to that lab environment, where it is quite narrow and isolating. And I think probably one of my skills, if you want to call it a skill, is that I kind of just have the ability to get on with pretty much everyone. And I don't know, that seems to get me quite far in life. I don't think it's a bad thing. There's very, very few people that I couldn't sit in a room with and find something to talk about, or, have a nice interaction rather than an awkward silence, So maybe back to kind of job stuff. So I always said if there was an ideal job for me, I never knew what it would be, but I said it would be kind of on the interface between actually, doing the science and then like going out and explaining the science to people in a way. So not exactly a teacher, but like, actually just, at that interface where you're explaining it to people that are maybe as a lay person that doesn't really understand what you do. And I think in a way that's kind of what I'm doing now, because, I speak to a lot of people, for example, just, investors and, people in different fields, which, they really haven't got a clue about aging or anything to do with it. And I really enjoy telling them all about it and telling them why it's important. And hopefully I always convince them by the end that it's, it's the way forward. So maybe I am doing that now, but just, in a kind of CEO role, not at the lab bench.
That makes sense. It's a good skill to have, because then, you gotta see that you're doing a good job. I don't know, whenever, I don't know, I feel like sometimes people are not, especially scientists, they don't like talking about themselves, but I just think, clearly you're doing a good job. I feel like you have something coming out next year, and you I don't know, I'm assuming you have enough money to get you there, but still, you must have convinced them to believe in you. Before this conversation, just to touch back on one of the things that I was going to ask before we moved on, that's my bad for asking about the company name, but so I was looking online, and there's a bunch of oral supplements already out there. Will yours be the first one that's been really tested and made sure to be the best, if that makes sense? Or are all the other ones, because sometimes when I see supplements online, I don't know the efficacy of them. How do you tell? Because especially in the United States, it's not a regulated market. At least I don't believe so. I don't think it's regulated to the extent of drugs are. So it's interesting to see you doing that research, where in the United States, people just blah, 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 blah. So I'm curious, how does, what compared to everything out there, is it, what's the comparison like?
Yeah, so, it really is the Wild West. The sort of supplement, nutraceutical markets, even skincare markets, in terms of what's out there and actual, what actual proof is there that it does what it says it does. There's few and far things that have some good science behind them and actually have been proven. So we are really used to a world coming from drug development where the hoops you had to jump through to prove that it worked and how it worked, and you've tested it every single way. When we started in this area, we were quite shocked at wow, you really don't have to do anything to put something on the market. But we could just put it on the market now. But the sort of ethos of our company is that it's all science based. Our reputations are putting it on the line. It's science based. It's going to have good studies and actual proof. Then you've got the slight problem where it's okay, you might have the best research in the world, but the one regulation that you kind of have to be careful of is actually then what you claim about that product. So, it's not we're then going to be claiming, take our supplements and you'll live forever, or it'll stop you aging, or so then it makes it hard. Actually, how do you get the fact across to the consumer that actually this does have science behind it if actually you can't show them the graphs? So it is a challenge. So it's, it's one of the things we found difficult is we could bring out something that's amazing and actually works and is proven in people and good science and good stats, but then, you can't put it on the bottle. You're limited to what you can say on the website. There's only certain claims you can make. So yeah, it's going to be a challenge to cut through it, all the sort of chaff that's kind of out there.
Yeah, I don't know if my grandmother going to the market. I don't know why I don't know, something funny about just imagine an old lady going to a store. I don't know. They do it every day, but I never imagined my grandma doing anything other than calling me. So I'm sure she exists outside of my phone. But I don't think she would look at the labels. She'd just be like, oh, this looks right. I heard my doctor says I should get these things. So have you? I don't know. This is kind of a question that I recently learned that there's UX design. I don't know, learn more about how to give users, or in this case, people who would use what you're making, a bottle of it, and have them walk through what they're experiencing. Do you guys do that? Or what is the equivalent of that? I suppose I see the problem, and I'm curious how you're addressing it. I suppose it's like.
What so you mean? Do we just give it to people to try and then?
In the sense, your concern is that like you have like you've done like all this, you've done it right, and then now it's a matter of communicating it, and that's something that you really like to do, that you always wanted to interplay with any role you had. And so I'm curious, like, how have you, like, either in your research that you've already done or in like testing, where you like make the labels and like talk to people, not like actually give them it, like have them take it, but like have them experience the bottle, if that makes sense, and then see how they interpret it to make sure that it goes through how you want it, if that makes sense. Like, so you have an issue over here. It's about a communication. So I'm curious, like how have you tried to address it, or like what are your thoughts on addressing it, I suppose?
Yeah, so I suppose it's kind of like, real focus groups of people and actually talking to real people who are actually going to, be the target market, or, the people that will benefit from it. And I think like when you are in this kind of science bubble, you've really got to remember, like, you're immersed in it every day. When I mean me, I'm immersed in this every day, and to me it's totally normal. And the idea of one day that we'll take a pill that'll slow down aging is like totally given. And but then you go and like tell that to anybody, and they just look at you like you're crazy, because it's just not in the public eye yet. So that's one thing that we're gonna, I think, not only like designing things right and making sure people can use them in the way intended or whatever. I think actually it's going to take a kind of a movement, like a shift in social belief and social acceptance of actually, we have this major problem in developed countries that we've got an aging population, and people go, well, grow old gracefully. But I'm sorry, there's nothing graceful about growing old. I just need to look at my grandma who was, stuck in a hospital bed and, no dignity and getting spoon fed. And there's nothing graceful about growing old. But unfortunately, because there's never been an alternative and there's nothing you can do about it, or at least that's the public perception, then it's nicer to think, oh, let's grow old gracefully, But I think a lot of education now needs to be done in actually, no, there really are things that can be done. And, if you're proactive about it, you can slow down the rate that when you're going to become frail and, live for longer. So I think before like any products or anything, I mean, that's going to be a real challenge, trying to change society's sort of belief of this, cycle we have where we, we're born, we age, then we marry or whatever and have kids, and then retire and expire, like, if you want a better word, because that's the science that's coming through has massive potential to change that sort of life trajectory. So until people can comprehend that and accept it, then I'm not sure if people will kind of be on the wagon to, do something.
Yeah, I feel like I assume you're probably going to be targeting the EU market, but since I'm in the United States, I'm thinking like, oh, where would because I do marketing in that's how I pay the bills, and so I enjoy like finding beachhead markets, and so I feel like Silicon Valley would love you because they're always about like trying to like extend their life, like fruit diets,
Yeah.
or like I feel like they would be like those early adopters that would just go crazy, especially because there's research behind it. But
Yeah.
I don't know. Are you able to like send it to the United States? Then again, like nothing would stop you. The United States, like you said, like we are the Wild West.
It's definitely, we're very aware of what everything that's going on over there. In fact, I was over there not last week but the week before. So yeah, I mean, I think actually probably some of the first people or the early adopters that would be interested in some of our stuff are like the biohacker type people who, are trying to optimize their body. So rather than, doing it for, age, it's just body optimization and being at your peak self, that they would be a group of people that would be very interested.
Mm-hmm. So, I suppose taking a step back, is there, because this is like a really complex issue. This is one of the ones I wanted to follow up on you with, but I was recently talking to someone who, like, they talked about, we were discussing like the gut biome and like how like it has a relation to aging and stuff. Like, just like who would think of these things? So other than aging as a complex structure, is there anything else in the world that you're just like, wow, that's really complex? And maybe this is like a free time question, like that you go into, or like very passionate about.
I mean, I'm my sort of inner geek is very much like space and stars and stuff, and like, you know, I haven't really done much physics or anything, but I do find it really interesting and like watch loads of programs on it, and yeah, that stuff like that just blows my mind. And yeah.
Have you seen the Cosmos series, the old one and the new one?
I see, yeah, bits of it, yeah, just like watching it on YouTube. And
well, I'm a space fan as well, and so I'm just kind of like mining you for recommendations. What are some of the ones that you like, or like when you do go to read about this complex thing, like what are some of the ones that you found that are really good?
Do you know what? Mostly just like it's stuff that pops up on like, you know, like the Discovery Channel and things like that I end up watching. I couldn't like name what they are, but yeah, just generally stuff like that. Yeah.
Not the History Channel, not Ancient Aliens.
Not really. I mean, I again, I'm one of those people where I'm like, there's definitely something else out there. Like, you know, being a scientist and knowing how complex just our body is, like, it's, you know, the possibilities are endless. Who knows? And I think that's why I watch a lot of stuff on space, and it just blows my mind. Like, sometimes I just have to turn it off because I'm like, oh god, I can't deal with it. It's just so complicated, and so like, yeah.
I was watching a Neil deGrasse Tyson interview, I think it was Stephen Colbert. And Stephen asked him, what is something that like really like rocks your mind? And he was saying, and I don't know if I'm going to articulate this correctly, so I hope I will, but he was saying that, so like the universe is expanding, right? So that the universe that we're able to see is different than the universe we would have been able to see like 5 billion years ago. And so like 5 billion years from now, like at a point in our future, people won't be able to see like other galaxies. And so he's like basically saying like there's probably stuff that has existed that we'll never be able to see because we exist now versus then, and then in the future the same thing's going to happen. And that's so trippy. It's like just keeps going.
That's the type of stuff where I'm like, you know, I really start thinking about it and then I have to switch it off. Yeah. So I'm like, I'm not going to sleep tonight.
Oh, my bad. I see the world as kind of like a funnel, like an hourglass where like it goes like it's really, really big, and then it gets to like humans where like we're normal seeing like, oh, a lunchbox or what have you, and then you get like microscopic or down to the atom level, and it gets giant again as well. Like everything's like really spaced out. I think we're like 9/10 space, like in between ourselves, like we're like, which is weird because like we're structures, and yet like the majority of us is like space, and then the majority of us is bacteria. So it's like, yet I have a hand. I don't know. It's like weird stuff. Like biology is crazy, but the universe is crazy.
Yeah.
Did you when you were I don't know, going back to what you're working on, but when you were transitioning into being a CEO and a founder, were you concerned at all? Were you completely like, I'm great, this is gonna work out? Or were you ever like, oh god, I don't know if I can do this? Like
yeah, it was quite a surreal experience. I don't know, I'm kind of one of those people where I always look back at things and go, how on earth did I end up in this situation? Or like, how has this happened? I always seem to get myself into things and talk my way into stuff. And yeah, if anyone had told me, you know, a couple of years ago that this is what I'd be doing now, like I absolutely wouldn't have imagined it. And I did find it, I mean, I don't think I found it difficult, but I think it was more just, how would you put it? Not the feeling of being out of my depth. Like whenever I was doing anything, I felt okay, and you know, any meetings and everything, and some really cool stuff as well that I've had the opportunity to do. But it was kind of afterwards when I was thinking, I was really out my depth in that meeting, and somehow I blagged my way through. So yeah, I mean, I've learned so much. I mean, I've gone from being a lab scientist to, a CEO of a company and all of the business side. I mean, I have no business training, still to this date, I don't. Somehow, I've got through it, and part of the reason is because my co-founder, he's kind of done a startup before and built a company up before, so I've been so lucky that I've had him to kind of mentor me through it, and really guide me. So I think in that respect, it's made it easier, and I don't know what I'd have done if it was just me. I'm sure I would have been fine, but yeah, just continually learning. Every day I just learn something new about how to run a business and, what's required. And yeah, I think the most difficult bit is being sort of time management.
So I guess for the last, 40 minutes, we've been talking about kind of how great you are. I'm kind of curious, is there anything you're really bad at that you wouldn't mind sharing? I don't know, I'm bad at swimming. I can float pretty well.
I'm really bad at maths.
Math?
I like maths. Yeah.
I would think science and math are like brothers, or I don't know.
Yeah, I mean they are. Luckily, the bit of math that I am okay at is statistics, which is helpful. But just other types of maths, I don't know. I just don't get it. Never enjoyed it. Not great at that.
There you go. There's something. For people listening, you're like, this person, I think sometimes when people hear or read about someone, they see them as where you are now, a year from having something that's deliverable. And they don't see that it was years of work. They just think, oh, that person's like that. I can't do that now. I won't ever be able to do that. But there's a path between me and you where I don't know if I worked really, really hard, maybe I could do the same things as you. I wouldn't have the same interest, so I'd probably fail in the long run. But so I think it's interesting to hear what people are bad at as well as what they're good at to show it's a continuum thing. You didn't wake up, like you said, you didn't wake up one day and had all the business knowledge. Even after the fact, you're just you know what? How did that work out?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of business and what I struggle with, focus on things and really concentrate on what's the most important part. I think that is something I'm really working on, and that I have really found hard to change and adapt to, because I think you kind of alluded to it before, when you're a scientist, your area of expertise is usually so narrow that you really focus intensely on that point. So I've kind of gone from, doing my PhD, which was a very narrow, intense focus, and then it has broadened out when I went into, drug development, and then broadened out further when I went into aging. But now, running a business as well as being a scientist, I have to wear so many hats. One day I'm a scientist, the next day I'm, in a meeting about an investment, or the next day I'm sorting patent stuff out, or, then, mundane stuff paying, office rates and stuff. And it's jumping from being those things. And I think that's kind of one thing I find quite difficult, just to manage that properly and to be able to wear all those hats successfully. So I think that's probably what I've improved on the most over the last 18 months.
Have you, I don't do this myself. I've been told that it's good to do, but the meditation to help on focusing and have you ever tried that? I don't know.
No, I actually haven't. I haven't, but do you know what? It is something I've considered, just because, even just in terms of your health, it's really good. But I haven't actually done it.
Yeah, I hear there's a good book by Viktor E. Frankl called Man's Search for Meaning, and in that book, he talks about how he's basically a psychiatrist who went through Auschwitz, and he noted that whenever there's when I say something, right, if I you suck, you have, I wouldn't say that, but you have there's a moment before you respond, and in that moment you decide who you are. And
right.
and apparently meditation helps you see those moments more. And so like I see the benefit of that, because then it's like, oh, someone irritated me. Did they? Like who cares? Like move on. I don't know. But if you experiment with it, let me know, because then I can see if it works. I'm trying to find guinea pigs, but there's some like apps. My doctor's trying to get me to do it, but like brain space. I don't know. Yeah, there you go. You know about it. I was gonna. Okay.
Yeah.
So when you are overwhelmed, or also I don't know if you ever watched this TV show Billions, but there was like a person on there who like would stare at a candle to help on their focus, like not think about anything else, which is like, I feel like it's just a type of meditation, like centering your mind. But I don't know if you ever want to like, if you're like on a train or something, you can just like stare at a candle or like something random and focus on that. It's like a muscle. I don't know, I'm just like trying to guinea pig you, see if you'll try a bunch of stuff and I can see what works. But so when you do feel unfocused or overwhelmed, have you found any like effective ways to get through it other than just like walking through it?
For me, I'm like quite a visual person, and if ever I'm kind of like a bit lost, or like I'm struggling to deal with the amount of things, or like to focus on what's important, or just as a general plan of what I need to do or anything, I always draw it out. So I get a notepad out and I kind of like draw part of it, like what, like really think like, right, what is important, what am I trying to do here? And then like work back from that and kind of be like, right, well, this are the steps I need to take. And then like kind of like a bit of a flow diagram. Like I find that just so useful. It just sorts it out in my head, and I'm able to see actually these are the important parts, whilst I've been spending all my time or focus on this, and actually really that's not important. I think just to get it, get all your thoughts out on paper, and kind of I always feel like it gets it out of my head. And it's like I took a bit of my brain out and just put it down on the paper for a while to give it a rest. But I find that for me is a good strategy.
Isn't that called kinesthesia, where like you enjoy writing things out? Yeah.
I mean, if I've got to remember something, I write it out. Mm-hmm. Like if I wrote it out, I remember it. So I love lists. Everyone laughs at me for my lists. I've always got a list. And they're like, you spend more time writing lists. I'm like, no, but they really help me. And I remember stuff if I wrote it out. So yeah, I'm definitely one of those people.
You're in good company. Leonardo da Vinci, he would make lists. Like he would like notice things in his environment. Like he'd make lists, then he'd like notice things, and he'd like he'd be like, what, like try to learn why a beak makes a snapping noise when it tries grabbing a fish. And like he would like go and like make little treaties on it. I don't know if you go that far to it, but there's also a good book called The Checklist Manifesto. I don't know if you've read it, but I feel like it'd be like right up your alley.
Yeah,
because like
sounds like it would be.
Yeah. So I guess I'm deciding where to go next. But so I think this is one of the big topics we wanted to talk about, is that sometimes being like, if there was a lady named I suck at names. I can picture her face. She has kind eyes. Molly Morse. There you go. She has like a superhero name, Molly Morse. I mean, just saying. But I don't know if you ever like noticed the nomenclature for names. It was in a Big Bang Theory episode. I'm not smart. They pointed it out. But she talks about how when she would go to like on her business card, she doesn't even have doctor on it because people are kind of like negative about that. Have you noticed anything like that as being a scientist, as you talk to, unless you have just like the best VCs in the world that don't have things like that, but have you noticed like you've had to make sacrifices like that to be an effective CEO talking to these business people?
No, I don't think I've made any. I haven't like changed anything. I mean, I have doctor on my business cards, and I haven't tried to change myself in any way for it. But I can understand why people do it, and I think especially being a woman in a very male-dominant world of science and business. Really, I mean, there's not that many female, startup founders. It's predominantly men, and I don't know. I think maybe that I'm quite used to kind of being the outsider a bit, coming from a science background, because that is a very male dominant profession. Not as much as it used to be, but it definitely still is. You do notice it, and you do still get remarks. And a funny one was when I turned up for a meeting and brought a co-founder with me who's male, and the remark was, "Oh, I see you brought your boss." It's like, well, no, I'm the boss. And it was like, just that. Why would you say that? But it does happen. So yeah.
I imagine they knew who was coming. Like you have a female name, right? Like how?
Well, I think it was more of, there was two of us coming. One was a male and one was a female. They didn't know which one was the boss. Kind of like assumed it wouldn't be me, being female and younger. So yeah, I think there are just stereotypes.
Yeah, I was talking to a few of my female and male friends that are in the VC world and in the startup world, and they were, I think it's, I don't know how to say this without like maybe getting in trouble, but like it does seem like there's like some frustrations that you guys go through. Like one person was in a similar situation as you, like going into a meeting like this, and it was a guy and a girl, and she's the boss, and they asked if they were dating. Like it's like, who cares? They're not there to talk about that. Like, go to a bar and talk about that. It's like, it's an irrelevant detail. Like, I think it's weird when like a person looks at another human being and they think like they're there to do business, and they think about like, why does it matter? You know what I mean? Like, like stuff like that. Like, oh, why are you dating? Well, you should put that down somewhere. It's like, how does that have anything to do with our business? I feel like if I was on someone's website and the co-founders, like the founders of the team, were like, we are not dating, I would just be like, why are they feel the need to put that down? No one cares. I don't care, but yeah, they like, it's just surprising. Like, right, like I would not treat a lady that way, but then I know there's people out there who just, I think that I see it as like a positive thing, and this is like me just trying to make a positive of a negative situation. But like, I'm pretty sure that guy did not get her business. Like they didn't, it's like that guy will be made poor by not having that association with a strong team. And so like that's the only positive I can take, but it's still really, really crappy. And another, I don't know, anecdote, maybe we can talk about this, but there was a meeting that someone had where like after the meeting, the people, like the VC people, instead of talking about their technology, were talking about, like they were like arguing about the attractiveness of the people. And it's like, why do you even have your job? Like, why are you listening to these people and trying to like find good companies to support if the first thing that they leave is like, you care what they look like? Like, does it matter? Just like, is it like maybe it's like a beauty thing? It was not like they made a beauty product and then it's like, oh, maybe they were using it. I don't know. There's like no logic for it. It's just craziness. But
yeah, I think a lot of not that I'm trying to like defend people who do these sorts of things, but I think it's like it's actually ingrained in the way that they've just been brought up, and what they're used to, and because just the society around them, and sometimes I really just don't think they realize like how offensive they're being, or that they're asking something that I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but there's a lot of things I get asked, and I do think you would never have asked a male that. Like if I was a male sitting in this seat and you're interviewing me or whatever, you would not have asked that to a male. And it tends to be a lot about like parenting and stuff like that, like family stuff and parenting and things, and I just, you just know it wouldn't get asked to a man. I can't think of an example off the top of my head, so it's not good, but yeah.
And we had two examples there, like the implication that you're not the boss, and then asking if they're dating. Like it's like, I don't know, it's just like a weird thing. I try to take a positive out of every situation. It's like the only positive is like hopefully that person made less money and then they would get fired. But but at the same time, it seems like women are really like, I enjoy interviewing female founders because it seems like you guys are like real, not to like overgeneralize, but like there's like a real sense of like go-getterness. I've noted, where it's like, isn't it? Yeah, someone was. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm like, I always say to like, I'm always got the door open to anyone, male or female, but I mean predominantly female, that wants any advice of like, how to go out and just do whatever you want to do, because I see it, I've seen it so many times where I think, someone has so much potential, but they kind of get ground down by, discrimination, and, they just won't speak up, or, they believe what people tell them, or they conform to what they're expected to be. And yeah, and I think I've kind of like gone through my career and I've had a lot of that, but the type of person I am, I've kind of rebelled against it, and I've actually been like, no, I'm like determined to do this, and, I'm optimistic and you can't grind me down, just things like, I mean, I had my daughter when I was 22, so that was, right when I was doing my master's study, and I was actively discouraged from doing a PhD because of, my personal circumstances, i.e., oh, you've got a child, you can't do a PhD with a child. So I was very much like, well, just watch me. But I know a lot of women would have been like, oh, no, you're right. Like, I can't do that. And, made to feel guilty that, they were at work or, studying or whatever when they should be at home or whatever is expected. So, I think I'm probably an exception. I haven't met many people that have done, a PhD with a child. So I do want to kind of use my story and be like, actually, you can do it. Like, there's nothing stopping you. When there's a will, there's a way. And I can't say it's been easy, but it's not, you don't have to choose, one or the other.
It's, the thing I think about, the paralyzer out of my life is like several years ago. I kept almost dying, and I didn't think I'd get through that, or get in a like, I've lost like 50 pounds. I know it's kind of a neat thing, but I never thought these things would happen. But it's like, the harder the thing is, it's like really enjoyable when you get through it. It's like when everyone says like, no, you can't, when you finally can, it's like a supremely enjoyable thing. Like, everyone said, no, you can't. It's like, I'd send a business card to every single one of them with doctor on it. It's like, there's a great book called One Many Some. I don't know, I say it enough. I should really look this up. But it's like an Italian book, and it's basically everyone sees a different version of you. Like, so I get to see you today, and I get like a sliver of who you are. And then even ourselves, like, it takes a lot of work to really see everything that we are. And so whenever someone gives you advice, they're only seeing that little slice of you. And so that's more often than not, like, I ask myself, and I think maybe this is a good strategy for people who are listening. When people give you advice, what are they seeing? Like, people said, oh, well, you should become a doctor because I'm good at science and I don't mind blood. And it's like, oh, you can see like the narrow part of me that made them feel like I guess that they imagine doctors as blood-stained people who use math all the time. So it's like, who are they seeing? And at the same time, like, I bet, I don't know, I'm kind of speaking for you, but I imagine you were like really like satisfied when you got through like your PhD, and like you could say like, yeah, I was right, I could do this.
Oh yeah, yes. It was definitely a moment that I was extremely proud of, because it was not easy and I had loads of hurdles throughout it, but it was kind of like, I'm not giving up, and I can do it. And and as well, I just think, I don't know, just, I'm relatively young and, a woman, and I still kind of get a little bit of a kick out of when, someone that doesn't know me goes, oh, what do you do? And I'm like, I'm a scientist. And then you can always see them go, oh, like, and I'm like, why is it such a surprise, And I think this is the reason why they're struggling to get, young girls into science, because, like, they've got this idea of what a scientist should look like. And then, and then when it's like, oh, right, well, what do you do? And then it's like, well, I've actually got my own company. And then they're like, oh, and then I go, And then they ask me something else and go, oh yeah, I've got a daughter. And they're like, oh really? And I'm like, yeah.
You just break
and it's like, they're like shocked. And I'm like, yeah. And I think it is just because, people just have this vision of like what a scientist should look like, what the founder of a company should look like, what a parent should look like. And it is just like a social thing, really. So
there's this, I don't know, I'm assuming you guys get different commercials than over in the United States, but there's this commercial, I don't think it was about women, I don't think it was intended to be that way, but it was like this little girl, and she kept trying to like build something with a hammer, or like help out, and every time the dad would come by, he'd be like, give that to your brother. And it's like, let her play with the hammer. Like, it's like when these people are saying like, who's the boss, or are you guys dating, or like talking about, the attractiveness, basically qualities that don't matter. I just think like, if it was your daughter, like if I have a daughter, like I'd want them to be able, have the same treated like I would be. And so like, but in this commercial, it's like really sad. Like the guy would just kept taking, like took the hammer from the daughter and gave it to the guy. It's like, what future does that give her where she can't like actualize what she wants? And so I think that's one of the big things, especially when you hear, I think there's a study that came out that like female founders only like maybe like 10%, and they get like 5% of funding, but then they do like 60% of the results. It's like I don't know, the numbers in itself, like it's very encouraging, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I recently applied for a grant for something, and like I was looking at the figures, and it was like the proportion of women that apply for grants is just like so much lower than the male. And, so it shows that it's not only that the problem isn't just that they're not getting the money. The problem is they're not going after it. Mm-hmm. So it's like, it's almost like the confidence isn't there. And I think that is a problem as well, amongst women, just having that confidence to actually go into, a world where you don't belong, or society perceives you not to belong. So, I mean, I personally, I love to be able to do anything that's, kind of helping or inspiring or promoting women in science, or just in general.
But I guess to like summarize. Yeah, well, that's the thing that you like kind of hit on the like you made a good transition for me. The like we're both human, right? Like we have like this thing in between our brain, in between our ears, called the brain, and it's like the greatest thing that's ever really been created. Like I don't know, that's kind of like a human centric thing, but we can make nuclear warheads, we can make penicillin and save lives, we can bring back species from extinction. It's like how does a gender stop someone from being that effective? It's I think I always like see people as brains, like it was just kind of a funny thought. Like if you think about it, like we're just brains, and like everything, like all this is just us trying to like interact with the world. Like that's all, like I don't know. But for people who are for people who are like standing at the foot of mountains like that, like seeing that type of opposition, or feeling like, oh, this is a journey of 1,000 miles, and they don't feel like they confidence in taking that first step. Is there anything with the mentorship or the advocacy that you do that you would recommend people think about to like overcome that lock in their brain that they don't necessarily even notice? Like, is there a way to like get around that you found?
Yeah, so I think personally the best thing that you can do is to surround yourself by people who like kind of do what you want to do. So because if you like surround, I don't know, if you I don't know, you want to found a company, right? But you don't know where to start, and you like don't have any confidence about doing it or anything like that. Like, I think if you joined a group of like, maybe it's people that got together once a month for like a networking thing about business or anything. And I think if you just like meet people that are doing what you want to do, and then you see them, and I think like in your brain, and it's like, okay, there's a lot of people doing this and they can do it. And, you can talk to them and think, right, is this what I'd imagined it would be like if I do it? And then if it is, and it's like, okay, so they're doing it. It sounds exactly like what I want to be doing. And it just kind of gives you that belief and that sort of visualization in your brain that actually, you know, I can do this and have the confidence to do it. And I think if you always surround yourself with people that are doing what you want to do, or if you want to get better at something, they are good at whatever you want to get better at, you're always going to, you know, reach to be like them. So that's going to like help you succeed, rather than, you know, surrounding yourself with people who are telling you that you're crazy and, you know, that's a stupid idea. And yeah, so I think, you know, I don't know, there's some, I can't remember the stats or whatever, but it's, you know, some fact about like you are the people that you surround yourself with.
It's like you're the average of the 5 people you interact with the most.
That's the one.
Yeah. My girlfriend's a good writer, and I'm not. So, like, her average kind of boosts me up in that regard. That's what she gets for writing 13 novels. But and another adding on to your point, like I was in the Bay Area, and I went to like there's a bunch of Y Combinator, like a bunch of startup people, but like I think most people know Y Combinator is like a good place. Like any startup there would be doing very well. And I went to a party with them. And I looked around and I was just like, these people are like me. Like, it'll show you that there's not like this special, like, what is it? Like, you know, in ancient times, like the divine right. They don't have like the divine right that gives them the crown, right? They seize it, like in A Knight's Tale, and he made himself a knight. But I don't know, that's transitions. But you know, it's like they're not really all that different. Like the smartest people in the world are just like you, but the only difference is like they've like put themselves in the position to fail. And I think like doing the average, like pushing yourself out there, like you'll realize that they're like you, and the only difference is they're doing things. Like they're taking that step. Yeah, I think it's very encouraging. I know, like when I saw that, I was like, I can build my own startup. I can do it now.
Yeah, that's exactly. That's like it hit the nail on the head about what I've just said. You know, it's like actually, you know, they're like me. I can do this. It's not impossible.
Yeah. All right. So I think we have like time for like 2 more questions. So the first is, so after next year, after 2019, you're gonna have something out there. Or do you have plans to develop anything else? Are you gonna like do? I don't know. I guess that's like the simplest question to ask. Like, is there any plans after that?
Yes, absolutely. So although like we spoke a lot about NAD at the start, so that's just like, you know, one tiny little bit. As I've kind of mentioned, like aging is like a huge, big, complex mess almost. And if you want to have any real impact on it, you have to do multiple interventions. You have to act on multiple levels. So like NAD is just a tiny bit of the puzzle. And so in the background, you know, we're working on a lot of other pathways and interventions. One of the things that is actually fairly well developed at the moment is looking at senolysis molecules. I don't know if you're familiar with that. So the idea that we have these senescent cells in your body. Yeah. And these are cells that they used to think they were just sitting there dormant, not really causing many problems, but actually they're not. They're very problematic. They're like a rotten apple. When one goes bad, it spews out a load of inflammatory factors, and then the other cells around it become senescent, and you know, and it causes a real problem as we age, as we accumulate these senescent cells. And lots of studies have shown that if you can successfully remove these cells, that you know, you get an aged mammal goes into a lovely new mammal and you know, it completely regenerates, and the results are absolutely amazing that have been getting published recently. And so we, you know, as well as looking for NAD molecules, we've also been looking for molecules that will actually you know, selectively remove senescent cells. So that's one of the kind of background things we're working on. And then, yeah, there'll always be a pipeline of other things coming through because, you know, that's what we do. We find molecules. We're not the NAD company. That's just the first thing that we happen to look at.
Is there anything that you're either what you're researching now or like what you're going to research next, the senescent cells? Is there anything that you're stuck on or that you like people listen in that could be helpful? I don't know. So like, are you looking for people to be a part of the team, or are you? Is there basically anything that's sticky that anyone listening could help clean? I don't know. That's like a horrible analogy, but yeah.
Well, I mean, the way we kind of work is that our view is that you know we've got a particular area of expertise, which is how to find the molecules. But in terms of actually testing them, like we don't have our own labs. Everything we do, we outsource to like specific labs. So, for the senescent stuff, we get it tested by a lab that specialises in senescent. So there's always going to be opportunity to partner up with labs who specialise in the area of aging that we would happen to be looking at the time. So in the future, we'd always be, looking for people to help us test the molecules. And then I suppose the other thing is like just the kind of general movement of like, the spreading the word that, actually aging is something that can, be slowed, reversed. And, how do we do that in a creative way to get it across to, society and, just people that actually might benefit from what we're doing. So I can't put any sort of specific, job titles or anything on it, but those are the areas that, we are like key areas that we're focused on.
Are there good ways to follow along with what you're working on? I don't know if you guys have a newsletter. If there is, I should sign up for it.
So we've got a website. So it's currently it's a bit, when you go on it, it's a bit stealthy, like what exactly are they doing? Because it's kind of under development at the moment. But there's an area where you can put your email address in and subscribe to our newsletter, which is going to, I think we're going to be starting that very soon. So it's going to be, keep up to date with everything we're doing and the results that are coming out, and just general, if people are interested in aging and health span, so just some cool facts and ways what you can do, things you can look for, things like that. So you can go to Nuchido.com. So that's, people don't know how to spell it. It's Nucido.com. And subscribe there, and that's the best way to kind of follow us at the moment. But then obviously other routes, such as you can find us on social media.
Yeah, and all those links will be in the description or in the show notes. So kind of like as a fun, yeah, it makes it simple. But people listening, they don't have to look at it. They can look up Nuchido.com. But as like a fun thing, I like trying to leave it open ended. And is there any question about the world that you don't have the answer to that like perplexes you? Because then it's like maybe someone could like I don't know, like attach onto your Twitter and be like, oh, that's what I think is the answer. But you know what I mean? Like what's something that like would make people think like, oh wow, that is weird. I don't know how that works either.
Gosh, that's so open-ended. I mean, for me, I like have these moments every day. So, doing experiments in labs, and you think, right, I'm going to work this out. And then you do a bit of science and you do the experiment and then you get the answer, but then like 10 other questions come up. So then you're always like, how does that work? So it's like there's never an end in sight. I think one thing, I can't think of anything like huge and like world scale, but like one thing that's quite related to all age and stuff that we've been talking about is one question that I really like, if anyone knows a lot more about it, is kind of like the whole idea that our bodies are disposable and like we have after a certain point in life the cells just don't look after themselves anymore, but in the body the germline doesn't do that. It like it just keeps going, and it does get mutations in it, but not terribly. So it's like, how could we turn our cells, like what's turned on in themselves to make them like that, and is there a way that we can harness that to kind of make ourselves a bit better?
I asked that question to George Church.
Really?
Yeah, actually, I know.
Question.
Yeah, like I asked that exact question because like I was just like, why is it that DNA cannot exist outside the body because of radiation, like just beating the crap out of it and it destroys it. Yet our germline, besides like random mutations, exactly your question. But I asked him that. Yeah, he gave an answer, but I won't give it here now.
I'll have to listen to it.
Yeah, I'll tell you after the fact, just so more people can like wonder about this. So just as like a funny last question, have you seen the movie The Fountain?
No.
Oh, it's with Hugh Jackman. It's really great. It's about aging, and they talk about it as a disease. So if people, and it's like, it's gut wrenching. My girlfriend, this is like to give a sense of like how emotional it is. Like she like didn't speak for like 4 days. She was like, "Why'd you make me watch that?" It was like it's like it makes you feel in a good way, not in like a I hate you lol. Hopefully,
yeah.
But it's like the guy trying to save his wife from death, and then like it's about anti-aging. It's really interesting. I don't know. I feel like it's like a romance. I would not call it a rom-com. It does not end positively. But yeah, I don't know if for people listening in who want to kind of see and ask. I mean, Hugh Jackman, like as you know, he's pretty great. He played Wolverine. I don't know if you watch movies, but I checked that movie out. But all right, well, that's a good like I guess I don't know. That's not a good segue, but I thank you for coming out and being on the show today and being the first YouTube version of it. Like this will be the one that goes on YouTube. So.
Oh, it's a pleasure. No, thank you for having me. I've enjoyed talking with you. So thanks.
And that was Nichola, CEO and co-founder of Nuchido, a rejuvenation and longevity startup that is doing great things. Remember to follow along with her journey, leave comments, let us know what you think. Other than that, I want to inform people before we go that there is a new way to show support for the podcast and to keep it advertisement free from now until forever, which is called Patreon. If you go to Patreon and look for Learning with Lowl, you'll see this podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. We can be found on Twitter at LowellWasHere, Facebook, and on the website learningwithlowell.com. Also sign up for the newsletter where you can hear amazing content every Monday, new episodes every Tuesday, and new blog posts around every Thursday. Remember to share and tell your friends. Please and thank you.